It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood along with Dale McKee ready to do another episode. How you doing, Dale?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing real good. I was just sitting here today. I was reviewing some of the Mississippi high school football rankings.
Really?
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on, as you well know, but I was just sitting here looking. I want to kind of go over this SB Live Power 10. Listen, there is a number 4 ranked, 4A Louisville Wildcats are number 1 in SB Live Super 10. 4A school, number 1. They've won a lot of games up there in Louisville, Mississippi, haven't they?
Hadn't they won 11 or 12 states?
I think they have.
They've won as many as anybody.
And they are the number 1 team, according to SB Live, in the state of Mississippi. Rolling in at number 2 is the Brandon Bulldogs, who had a big win last Friday night against who? The Warriors of Oak Grove.
Oh, yeah, that was a big upset.
Yes, sir, it was. They beat them 38-21. Jumped out, I think, to a 17-0 lead. And, man, the Warriors never could recover. Number 3, Oak Grove. The Warriors at number 3 in the Super 10. Ocean Springs, number 4. Starkville Yellow Jackets coming in at 5. Tupelo Golden Wave at 6. Picayune Maroon Tide, they're at 7. And you know the Maroon Tide's always close to the top. They're 5-2 right now. Pearl Pirates, there's one that you don't see in the top 10 every day in Mississippi high school football, but they're there now. Mm-hmm. Warren Central Vikings. And number 10, the Holmes County Central Jaguars. That's a 5A school at 7-0. Now, I just want to hit you with these 5A rankings. And I want you to listen to this, Dale. This is Class 5A. Number 1, Holmes County. Number 2, Clarkdale Wildcats. Number 3, West Point. Number 4, Florence Eagles. Number 5, Lafayette Commodores. Lafayette. You notice something missing there, Dale?
Lafayette. Where's the South?
There ain't no South in it.
Really?
No, ain't that something?
Not surprising.
Well, I
haven't seen
the Wildcats. Clarkdale is 4-3. West Point is 4-3. Florence is 5-3, and Lafayette are 4-3. And Holmes is 7-4, and there's not a team in the South good enough to match with that. A team in 5A South. That's odd, don't you think?
Well, I just look at our division and.
Well, I take that back. Florence is in the South.
Are they?
Florence is in the South. They are. So I was wrong. Florence is the only team from the South.
I didn't know if they went north or not.
They're South.
This last reshape.
I was looking at that earlier this morning, talking about prospective playoff matchups and stuff, and they are in the South. Wayne County is 3 5A, and they're 4, or vice versa. But anyway.
Well, I assume they're in there with Natchez and Brookhaven.
They are.
And all that bunch.
Mm-hmm.
They should end up winning that. I guess they're basing it on they're going to win that division, or expected to win it. And
they don't think anybody's going to win this other division?
Well, right now, I think if you look at it, Laurel and Gaucher have the upper hand on everybody.
Laurel's got a couple of losses, don't they?
Not in the division.
Not in the district.
Yeah, they're 2-0 in the district.
Okay.
Gaucher's 2-0.
Yeah.
And everybody else has lost at least one game.
Yeah.
I think they're the only 2 undefeated. But you know what? We're talking about undefeated. We're still around 9 or 10 college football teams, But I've noticed in the JUCO league, there are no undefeated teams.
Wow.
And in the NFL, there's no undefeated teams after yesterday because Philadelphia went down and San Francisco went down. So there's no undefeated teams in the NFL, and we're only in week 5 or 6 of the NFL season.
Yeah.
But the Detroit Lions are 5-1.
They are.
That's your team, isn't it?
That's my team. Me and Benito Jones is. I won't mention that without getting back to this. You talk about Detroit. They've held opponents to under, and Benito and crew, they've held opponents to under 100 yards rushing through the first 6 games, each opponent. Nobody's gained over 100 yards rushing. That's happened for this organization in 1930, 1931, 1932, and now 2023. They played defense in Detroit.
I've heard 2 other things that these radio guys throw out on ESPN sometime. One of them was right now the Miami Dolphins are on pace to be the all-time scoring most points in NFL history. And the second thing I thought was interesting is the Cleveland Browns. They're I don't know, they're about 2-3, but they've only given up totally defensively only 1,000 yards in 5 games.
That's amazing.
I mean, it really is.
It is.
I mean, really in the NFL, it is. But now Detroit, and watching them last year and this year, they started getting a little bit better on defense toward the middle of last year. Mm-hmm. But they're like 13-3 in their last 16 games last year, and of course they're 5-1 this year.
Well, they had to get rid of Matthew Stafford, I guess.
Yeah, but now yesterday it was a tough game for them. But now they shut down Tampa. Tampa couldn't move it very well against them.
Dale?
Yes.
Who you got for us tonight as a guest?
Oh, was it my turn to get a guest?
No, it was my turn, but I don't have one. So who you got?
Okay. All right. Well, let's call an old friend of mine. You know that old commercial back in the days. We're gonna start visiting people. Here's plane tickets all around and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we're gonna visit with an old friend today, Jeff Roberson. He is the assistant athletic director at Ole Miss,
the University of Mississippi.
And he's written a book about Jim Weatherly, who was his cousin. If you remember Jim Weatherly, the old guitarist and songwriter and Ole Miss quarterback. I think he was from, what's that little town? You turn off left to go to Ole Miss, to Oxford. Pontotoc.
Oh, okay.
He was from Pontotoc.
I should go up the old way.
Yeah, go up the old way.
Yeah.
Well, you go up a new way too now. You go up 45 miles.
Okay. Anyway,
he's going to talk to us about his job.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
Can't wait. Not going to wait. That having been said, Dale and I are going to take a break to hear from our sponsor, and we'll be back with tonight's guest right after this commercial.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Jeff. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I appreciate y'all having me on. Thanks.
Now, you're a special assistant to the Ole Miss athletic director. Tell us what your job description is, or what you do on an everyday basis.
Well, special assistant to the AD, and it says for history and archives. So that means I've been around a long time, Dale. I don't know that means I'm that knowledgeable, but it means I've been around a while. And I've been around Ole Miss, went to school there, and then I've been in the media and in Oxford really for the last 32 years. So I love what I'm doing now. I was in sports writing for years, and back when it was basically all we did was sports write and take a few pictures. Now the media world has changed. And it's kind of a young guy's game, young ladies' game now to really be in sports journalism. So I worked with the athletic department, and I assist Langston Rogers. He would say I don't assist him, but I do. I mean, we work together, and Langston's the former sports information director, and been at Ole Miss for 40 years and Delta State before that. And so what we try to do in a nutshell, as you mentioned, asking what we do, we just, we kind of look after the files and the archives of anything that's happened in the past. And I mean, that can be as recent as the last game against Arkansas, where we take all the statistics and all the game notes and all the archive stuff and put it in files for former players or former games and different things like that. even up until then. And then back, if somebody calls from a publication somewhere and wants a picture or needs, whether it's for a story or a book or an obituary, we try to provide those as quick as we can. And, it's just kind of taking care of folks who've gone through Ole Miss for years and years and years and left their mark with the Rebels and the Lady Rebels.
Well, that sounds like a very interesting job, but you probably have to do a lot of research also.
Yeah, some of it comes to mind pretty quick, but I always double check because if I say, you remember that game back in such and such, and I look and I'm maybe a year off or a month off or something, but because Dale, we've seen a lot of games in our years and been through a lot of ups and downs and covered a lot of things, but it is really interesting, and I'm really honored to get to do it and have the opportunity to keep the names of those people that put themselves on the line for Ole Miss, and it's just a real honor to do that.
Well, now listen, you evidently were an Ole Miss fan growing up, but where did you get your start into journalism and into sports writing?
Yeah, some of your listeners may know this. I've been on the radio a couple of times about this, but I wrote a book with my cousin, Jim Weatherly, about 5 years ago, and since then he's passed away. But he was an Ole Miss quarterback back in the Coach Ball era, and then was in the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and just recently went in the Mississippi Songwriters Hall of Fame down here on the coast. But we lost him in 2021, so I was 5 years old when he played his last season at Ole Miss, and so they'd already started dragging me to games whether I knew what was going on or not, so I didn't really have any choice. I was an Ole Miss guy from the get-go, and so, went to school there, and then I was fortunate to be able to meet a gentleman that named Don Whitten, and Don Whitten was a long-time sports editor of the Oxford Eagle and still lives in Oxford and is retired, but Don grew up with all of my cousins over in Pontotoc. I grew up in Baldwin, but my dad was from Pontotoc, so I knew Don, and back in the college years, I ran around with Don to some ball games and did some things. He took me to my first baseball game at Mississippi State. He took me to first football games at different places, and I had to cover, and we just had a good time traveling. And when I came back to Oxford after college and was kind of trying to get back in the business, I'd been out for a little while and in a family business and back in Baldwin, and I told Don I was ready to get back in, and so he hired me at the Oxford Eagle, and that's really kind of when I got to know you, Dale. And so I had majored in journalism, and I had gotten back in it, and I guess the rest is history. Oxford Eagle on to Ole Miss Spirit, and now doing what I do now and trying to do a little writing and just enjoy it. As I tell people, I've been real fulfilled in my life and in my work.
So about what year did you start covering Ole Miss football?
Well, I did a little when I was in college with the Daily Mississippian, and back in the day when all there was the newspapers and maybe some radio and little TV spots, but just writing back in college. And then I moved back to Oxford in 1990, and that's when I started with the Oxford Eagle, and my first trip, you'll appreciate this, not necessarily the game maybe, but the first trip I went with the Oxford Eagle with Don Whitten and my buddy Bruce Newman, who's a photographer there and still taking pictures in Oxford. We went to the Gator Bowl, and they said, "You want to ride with us? We're going to stay a week at Sawgrass." I said, "Yeah, I believe I can handle going to staying a week at Sawgrass for a New Year's Day bowl game against Michigan." Now, the game didn't turn out so well, but the trip was magnificent. I thought I'd get used to this, going to golf resorts and hanging out and interviewing players and coaches. So that was my first experience. And even though the game wasn't fun for us, but got used to that and have enjoyed it ever since.
What's maybe one of the toughest columns that you ever, or stories that you had to cover when you were, covering Ole Miss back in the early days?
Well, I think if you ask me what I covered, and it happened real quick, Dale, as soon as I started at the Oxford Eagles, 4 months later, when Chucky Mullins died, we lost Chucky, and he died on May 6, 1991, and I was at the funeral. I was actually with the group of people at the hospital when he had to go to the Oxford Hospital there when he had his last I guess incident or whatever that you want to call it. But that was a sad time, and I think I look back and, having gotten back into the sports writing business and sports journalism, I just happened to be there in time to catch a few moments with Chucky. Went to his house, took pictures of people donating money, got to know Chucky just a little bit, and then, of course, passed away, and very memorable and very sad time. So, as far as, that's a tough thing. I mean, it's always tough to be a part of things like that, and you want to put your best foot forward, so to speak, and your best efforts on writing and other things to really do a good job. And that's been a long time ago now. And we got to honor Chris Mitchell, who was the first guy to wear number 38, and back in the 91 season, he was in Ole Miss last week at the Arkansas game, and he was there, and his old teammates came back to see Creek, as they call him, and so that was kind of gone full circle there, I guess you would say. But I give you another example of a tough situation. Maybe we didn't write necessarily tough things about it, but it was a tough story. When coaches either don't succeed or they are released or whatever you want to call it, let go. And 2 weeks ago, the week before that, we had LSU a game, the 2003 Cotton Bowl champion reunion, and Eli and that bunch came back, and I just happened to get to sit by David Cutcliffe in the press box for about a quarter and a half, and it was good to renew that. I hadn't talked to him and his wife and family. Of course, his son Chris is the Oxford High School coach, so they come back a lot, but just to be able to, and I again, looking back, you can't rewrite history, but I wish a lot of those coaches that are no longer coaches at Ole Miss had been able to make it or been able to stay. And certainly David Cutcliffe was one that I enjoyed working with, and we had a really nice get-together there to talk about old times and about his grandkids and just a lot of good stuff. So, I guess that generally talks about what you ask about tough stories, but always tough to see people, move on, whether it's for a good reason or a bad one. So those are kind of things.
Well, you've covered a lot of coaches. I assume you started with Brewer and went to Tuberville, and then you went to Cutcliffe.
Yep.
And then after that, you had a good run. You had about 5 or 6.
Yeah, and over the years, I've gotten to know them less. I would say, my friendships or relationships it was a different world back then. It was smaller. I mean, everything was smaller. Media was smaller. The number of people that covered, for example, I'm changing sports, but if you talk about baseball, I used to go out there and cover some of the baseball teams, and Ole Miss has always had, baseball has always been a good sport at Ole Miss, and been to the World Series a lot of years before, even recently, but not a lot of people covered it, and not as many people were paying attention until the last 25, 20 years or so, and I'd go out there and it'd just be a few people, so it was kind of a small world that we lived in with media and other things, and football or whatever it is. Now, it's just I was talking to David Cutcliffe that day in the press box, and we both looked around, and I said something about, look how many young people are covering these ball games now, and he said, you're right. And so, it's just, it used to be a smaller, kind of older crowd. Now those young guys and ladies, as I talked about in sports journalism, it's just a different world, and then you evolve with it and you go with it, and it's a good thing. But I've been real blessed to get to know a lot of those coaches, and I remember one that I've been able to not really stay in touch with, but that I got to, a former Ole Miss player and head coach, Rod Barnes, in basketball, was just a great Mississippi guy, and I always loved my time spent with Rod, and he brought his Cal State Bakersfield team back to play Ole Miss a couple of years ago. So, run into lots of coaches, Dale, lots of players, former players. Always good to see them.
Well, that's just outstanding. You know, the magnitude over the years, the friendships that you form, and things like that, especially with coaches. And I'm sure it's difficult when one has been let go or something like that, and they do come back and I guess honor their teams or something like that. That would be, you know, it seemed like that would be kind of awkward. I think I met Steve Sloan one time in the press box at an Ole Miss game. He brought a Central Florida team up to Ole Miss. And I can't remember that.
Yeah, that was the opening game of the '97 season. Tuberville was our coach, and Steve was the athletic director at Central Florida, and they had the quarterback named Dante Culpepper. You may remember that name, and they almost beat us, but we went on and had a really good year. That team won 8 games and went to the Motor City Bowl. But yeah, Steve Sloan was the coach when I was at Ole Miss, so we go way back, Dale, when we're talking about Steve Sloan.
Oh yeah, I remember reading something in one of the old Laurel papers one time. Steve Sloan has been hired at Ole Miss, and he's going to have a $27,500 contract, you know, and it was outrageous at the time, you know. You're going to pay a college coach $27,500, coach football. I cannot believe it, you know. So
there's some money in sports, and there's more of it today. You're definitely right. It's an interesting world we live in, and I really do mean this. I have enjoyed, you know, a lot of people have their own opinions, and a lot of people maybe could be negative toward, you know, salaries or what all the new things and that sports have evolved into. But I truly enjoy watching it evolve and watching what's the future going to hold, and how, in my situation, Ole Miss being a part of it and doing the things they're doing to try to stay on top of their game. And that's what they're trying to do in every way. And they're challenges, but I see effort, and I see, you know, good things ahead for Ole Miss in sports, and being in the SEC. It's certainly a good thing for, you know, Mississippi State and Ole Miss both to be members of the Southeastern Conference, because it doesn't get any better than that.
Jeff, this is Marshall, and one of the things Dale didn't tell you about me was I'm the clock operator. So unfortunately, we're out of time. But we have really had a ball talking with you, and listening to you share about your time at Ole Miss. It's been a real treat, Jeff. We thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it, and if y'all need me again, just holler. We're up there and love, you know, talking to folks all throughout the state. The whole state of Mississippi is important, and we're proud to be a part of it.
We thank you for that. Hold on for just a second. Right now, Dale and I are going to take a break to hear from one of our sponsors and be with tonight's final segment right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back to our final segment for tonight's Brouhaha, and what a special treat that was. That guy, man, he's easy to talk to. He's Ole Miss through and through, and he loves it. And, you know, what's not to love about a guy like that?
Well, he's got his dream job.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely, you know, you grew up an Ole Miss fan. You covered them for all those years, sports writing, and now you're actually associated with the university.
Man, how cool is that for him?
That's pretty good stuff there.
Yes, sir. He knows his stuff. Anything you want to chunk out here? We've already talked a little bit about the NFL in Detroit.
Yeah. Okay.
Come out with the power rankings, Week 7 power rankings. Who would you think would be number 1?
For the NFL?
Yeah.
Well, I would say yesterday morning it would have been San Francisco or Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But after yesterday, them losing, I assume the next team would be, I'm partial, I would say Detroit or Miami.
Okay. Well, you're pretty good. I mean, San Francisco and Philadelphia both dropped down to 3 and 4 respectively. Number 1 is the Kansas City Chiefs. They were 3 last week. The Chiefs are fighting through some offensive issues beyond Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, but they're more than alleviated by Chris Jones and what the defense is doing. That's a Mississippi guy, Mississippi State guy, doing well up there. Miami Dolphins are up there at number 2. And I mean, aren't they expected? Didn't you say something about they're projected to score more points than in history than anybody in the NFL?
Yeah, they're on pace too. They're on pace too.
Yeah. Of course, that's one thing about a pace. It can be hard to keep. It can be hard to keep. 49ers 3, Philadelphia 4, Detroit 5. Detroit Lions 5. I'm excited about Benito and the Lions. I hope they can go all the way. Jacksonville Jaguars at 6 and the Ravens. And we're going to wind out the top 10 with Buffalo Bills at 8, Cowboys at 9, and the most Steelers.
Cowboys?
Yeah. How did they get in the
Cowboys.
top 10? Yeah, Cowboys?
Where are
Really?
the Saints? Where are the Saints?
Oh, I didn't even go that far down. I stopped at 10.
Top 20?
Yeah, top 20, maybe top 32, maybe, whatever it is. I don't even know how many teams are in there. I can't keep up
32,
with it.
I think.
Oh, man. But anyway, Dale, it's been a good evening. Let's see, what else? I got a couple of things here.
You do?
Yeah. This is favorite traditions category, pregame preps, tier 1. Pregame preps in the Southeastern Conference. Who you think's number 1? Yeah, you got to be an idiot not to get this right. I mean, come on, say it. Don't accuse you. Go ahead and say it.
Roll Tide?
Yeah.
Roll Tide?
Yeah, their big pregame thing is the Walk of Champions. And it's a brief opportunity for the Tide players to interact with their supporters as they depart from their team bus upon arrival at Bryant-Denny. We've seen them walk that walk 1,000 times. That's a big deal, a Walk of Champions. And you know what? I see people with these Walks of Champions and stuff, and it bothers me when people take a Walk of Champions, but they ain't champions. But now Alabama can make that walk that walk, and talk that talk, whether you like them or not. But anyway.
Well, you know, Uncle Nick got his 200th win there Saturday over there.
It was impressive.
Yeah.
200. Somebody's just one ahead of him. Who was that?
I don't know. That's just 200 wins at Alabama.
Yeah. Oh, at Alabama.
I think so.
Ooh, that's a lot. Of course, that's right. He's been there a long time. He's won a bunch of ball games.
Yeah, I think he went there in about 07, 08, somewhere along that lines.
You know what they do out there at Texas A&M? Their big deal when they get game ready out there. There ain't no telling, but you know.
Well, I don't know all about it, but I do know they're the most unique tradition we have because you know they have a lot of military deal. But I know that they have a big pep rally like on at midnight, but before the game, and there's like 45,000 people come to it. But is there something else?
You're the man. It's called the Midnight Yell.
The Midnight Yell.
Midnight Yell. Nothing like a group primal scream at witching hour before football Sunday to fire up the faithful in College Station. Man, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
It'd be a little past my bedtime, though. I don't think I'd make it. We got another one or two here. Let's look. Let's see. We got one school in the SEC that's got a Navy. Care to guess who that is?
Vanderbilt?
No. Well, it was close. It's in the same state, Tennessee. The Vol Navy. Have you ever seen that where they get in all those boats, they pull up out there in the Tennessee River outside of Navy Stadium? That's quite a sight to behold. There was one similar to that I saw on TV this past week out of Washington. Where Washington, or they had the Navy. Washington's got a Navy too.
I watched the highlights of that Washington game. I wish I'd have watched that whole ball game.
It was fun.
That was a heck of a ball game.
That's two good football teams. I tell you what,
both of those quarterbacks, they did a good job. I saw an interesting game Thursday night. I saw, I believe it was West Virginia playing Houston. West Virginia goes down and scores with about, 15 seconds to go in the game, and they go up. And Houston is the home team, and they're down like about 5. And they throw one pass and get about 10 or 15 yards and get out of bounds, okay? And there's like one play left. Quarterback, he drops back and he heaves it, and guess what?
Intercepted.
No, they catch the ball.
They did not.
Yes, they did. They caught a tip ball.
But did they score?
One of the Houston players purposely went up and tipped the ball back to somebody that was standing in the back of the pack. It was a set-up play that they had practiced. And they won the game, and they didn't get the ball back but with about less than 10 seconds.
That's a good play right there.
Yes, sir. It was
That'd been hard to pull off. You hear me?
Yeah.
But it worked.
Yeah,
and when it works, no matter what it is, when it works, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
That having been said, there we're out of time.
We are.
We are.
We're just getting going.
I know. We just getting cranked up, but we're going to shut her down now.
Why don't Jamie give us an hour?
Well, he probably would if we wanted one.
2 hours.
We'll do a Brouhaha marathon.
You know what
day.
I think we do? What's that guy on SEC Network? Comes on at 2 and goes to 6. What's his name?
What time of day is that?
2 to 6
I'm usually asleep from 2 to 6.
Okay. SEC Network. He's a talker. You know,
Yeah.
he's like the Howard Cosell of the Southeastern Conference.
Oh, Paul Feinbaum.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's start every day having a radio show from 2 to 5.
2 to 5.
2 to 6.
I'll take that under consideration.
Okay.
But right now,
I think we could outrank and we could outdraw him. What you think?
I don't have any doubt.
Okay.
We can smoke him like a cheap cigar. That having been said, folks, listen. You know, we almost got away before he got us.
J-Mar.
But he got us. But anyway, listen, y'all follow us on during the week on Facebook at the Brouhaha, and you can see all of our shows cataloged or listen to them all cataloged on our YouTube channel, the Brouhaha. But for now, it's about that time, and you know what that time it is, Dale? It's time to say goodbye.
Is it?
Yeah.
Goodbye, Dale.
And goodbye to you and to everybody, and we'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.